Hey everyone, it's Mick here again, and in this video I'm kind of going to give you a recap of my amazing experience at COP25, as well as a little bit of a project update with my community project, that is the podcast that I referred to in my last video. So I'm going to start with the project first to get that out of the way, and then we'll talk about COP. So my project, I finished recording 7 out of 10 of the interviews. They're all edited, ready to go whenever I get the platform on Spotify and iMusic, as well as I'm in the process of getting my logo developed. So I met with someone who has agreed to do my logo. We talked about ideas that really can capture the message that I really want to portray throughout this series. So that's kind of where I'm at with the podcast, my community project. I'm still in the process of looking for 2 other people to interview. I have 1 more interview scheduled, but that will only bring me to 8, and I had to have plans for 10. I plan to release the first episode on Wednesday, February 12th. And this episode will kind of just be an introduction of me talking about what the project is, giving a little bit more of a background of students on IAC Youth Climate Labs, and the Community Action Cohort. Climate Action Cohort, sorry. We're just such a big community that I always mix that up. So that's kind of where I'm at with the project. So let's talk about COP. So I only was able to go to COP for 1 week due to exams and other commitments that I had to come back for. But throughout the week, I've learned so much. There's not always positive either. Learning can happen through amazing experiences and also through experiences that are difficult to go through. But at the end of the day, as long as learning comes out of it, I still view it as positive. So first, I kind of want to talk about the role of youth at COP. So I did find that many times youth were tokenized. They were invited to the table, but they weren't giving a piece of the puzzle and of the meal. So many times people would consult with us, they would invite us to these different events, ask us to speak, but it kind of felt like they weren't listening. And of course I do understand the bureaucracy, there we go, that's the word. Bureaucracy of everything where, you know, change, it comes at a pace. You can't speed it up, you can't expedite it, or so they say. But I really felt that sometimes the youth were just kind of invited so they could get a little check off, and then they kind of like put us on our way. Another theme I kind of want to talk about is the coastal communities. You know, many times I heard about these projects being implemented in these large urban centers, which is great for awareness and for population size, but really and truly we have to think about the communities that are really being impacted by climate change and by this climate crisis. These small coastal communities are being forgotten about. They're not being included in these discussions, and they don't really have a voice. This is on, you know, a provincial scale, a national scale, and even an international scale. I find that because a space or a community or a dwelling, because they don't have this large population, and it won't be like a huge social media takeover or a big headline in the news that these places are being forgotten about. And finally, one more learning thing that I kind of went through is how incredibly exhausting these conferences can be, mentally and physically. You know, we sit in these meetings kind of going from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., 5 p.m., and just being in a space for so long and hearing the same things over and over. I found it very difficult that a lot of the outside of negotiations, the side events, they were fantastic for ideas, they were fantastic for networking, they were fantastic for people sharing their passions. But I felt that they were missing the action. And I truly believe that they're missing this action because they're lacking the resources, because our governments are not putting in the resources that they need to for all these amazing ideas to be implemented. A lot of these side events had representation from all over the world. It was fantastic to see how one issue is framed and shaped and perceived in one area of the world, and then how it relates to that other area. So that was fantastic for networking, for being able to shift my perspective from just kind of like New Brunswick, Newfoundland, Canada to more of a global scale. But there are also so many positives as well. You know, we can't forget about the positives. So first, I really want to talk about just the amazing people at these events. You know, I mentioned earlier that sometimes youth are just tokenized, but there are some people who really, really value the youth opinion and who take time out of their very busy schedules to sit down with us and to really listen. And it was so evident and so clear when you're in these meetings and in these conversations to see who are actually listening to you and who are just there and who just have you there to get a check mark there. But it really made myself and my other climate cohort members feel valued when we had these conversations and we were given a piece of the pie, when we were, you know, had this opportunity to talk about our passions and to talk about the youth voice. So that was absolutely fantastic. The support that SOI, Students on Ice, and Youth Climate Labs gave to us was fantastic. You know, sometimes at the end of the day, I might have been in a negotiation meeting, or I might have been in kind of a side event where they talk about a theme or they talk about a topic that I haven't fully comprehended yet, or that I could fully wrap my head around. But you know, these organizations that sent us there, Students on Ice and Youth Climate Labs, their organizations and the people involved with them, such a wealth of knowledge that, you know, they were able to help us understand. They were able to be like, okay, what do you want to know? Let's take a step back and really break it down so you can fully understand what was happening. And that was fantastic. As well as seeing all the other SOI alumnus there. SOI is an amazing network of people from across the world. And there were many alumnus there that we can connect to and talk to and, you know, share experiences with, and that was amazing. Just being in this atmosphere of people talking about climate was something completely new for me. Being from a small town and moving into a larger city, you know, it's hard to find a group of people who you can really sit down with and talk about legislation, talk about policy, talk about governments, talk about these coastal communities, and talk about nature-based solutions. It's hard to find people who have that niche and to have that passion for this. I love sharing my passion and inspiring others through conversations and communications. That's something that I love to do and something that I will constantly aim for and try to do. But having that foundation already and being able to go a step further and to go deeper with the participants at COP was fantastic. It was great to see a few people from Fredericton as well. I met up with 3 representatives that were sent on behalf of another country. Meeting them at the space was great. Being able to really connect with them and to reflect on how we can bring it back to our community, how we can bring back this dissemination of knowledge, and really share with others. So that's kind of my experience at COP. Hopefully I was able to give you a true and real and raw kind of portrayal of what I experienced there. And for the future, I will be continuing my podcast, so keep an eye out for that. The name of the podcast, again, is Environmental Gladiators. And I will also be hosting kind of a little presentation here at the UNB campus of the University of New Brunswick in Fredericton. So yeah, I'm going to be doing a presentation talking about key takeaway messages that I got from COP, Again, giving the real raw experience that I had there, I think it's important to fully share the full picture and not just the Instagram worthy stories, to really give the positives, the negatives, because that's the only time that we're going to learn, that we're going to grow, and that we can come together as a community to really combat this issue, not only the issue of climate crisis, but the issue of not taking youth voices seriously. And that's something that I really hope to do with this presentation, with my project, and any future work that I decide to do. So that's what's going on with Mick. That's my experience at COP. Again, please feel free to reach out if you have any questions, if you want to follow up with anything that I discussed here. And yeah, oh, one more thing. I absolutely love the Indigenous Peoples Caucus. Being surrounded with other Indigenous people from across the world was truly inspiring. Seeing that the social media team and the communication team were mostly made out of youth was fantastic. Being able to draft a letter with other members of the Indigenous Peoples Caucus to go into Eco Magazine, which everyone will get at the beginning of every day, was fantastic. Just so many mind-blowing, like, perspective shifting events happened during this time that it's really, really hard to capture in a short recap video. But I hope I did it justice, and again, please reach out if you have any other questions. I'd love to chat. Mwah!